Half for my vacation, half for my daughter's wedding dress, and you'll make do. Emily's mother-in-law snarled every month, snatching away her salary. For months, Emily endured this tyrannical old woman stealing every penny she earned from sleepless nights of hard work. But that day, when Barbara reached into the purse to grab the money as usual, a blood-curdling scream erupted throughout the house. The mousetrap Emily had planted inside snapped down on her greedy mother-in-law's finger. But this was only the beginning of the perfect revenge Emily had been secretly plotting. How would this vicious mother-in-law react when she discovered she'd been outsmarted by her sweet, obedient daughter-in-law? And what would happen when Emily's husband was forced to choose between his wife and his mother? And before we continue, write in the comments from which country you're watching the video. And also check if you're subscribed to the channel, as I share interesting life stories with you every day. Okay, let's enjoy the story. Emily quickly returned to work after giving birth to little Sophie. It wasn't that she was dying to get back into the swing of things, but her maternity leave money ran out fast, and living on Ryan's salary alone was becoming impossible. Luckily, her accounting skills let her work remotely, and her bosses accommodated her, valuing her as a key employee. So, with the help of the grandmas taking turns watching the granddaughter, Emily dove back into the world of numbers and reports. Her salary was smaller than before maternity leave, but it was still a solid boost to the family budget. The only problem was, Emily barely got to handle those funds herself. Her mother-in-law, Barbara, took firm control of it all. "I know best how to spend money. I have more experience," she declared flatly when Emily first got paid. Ryan, as always, stayed silent, just giving his wife a guilty look. He feared his mom's tantrums more than a root canal. Emily chose not to argue either. Barbara was helping with the baby, and she didn't want unnecessary fights. She hoped that over time, Barbara would ease up and give her more financial freedom. Every month, after getting her paycheck, Emily obediently handed the money over to her mother-in-law. Barbara meticulously noted every deposit and allocated the funds as she saw fit. Some went to utilities, some to groceries, some to clothes for Sophie. But the biggest chunk usually ended up going toward the needs of Jessica, Barbara's spoiled younger daughter. Jessica was pampered and used to getting all the attention. She always got whatever she wanted and took it for granted. Emily tried to ignore the unfairness, but resentment built up inside her. She wanted to decide how to spend her own hard-earned money, from sweat and sleepless nights. "It's all family money anyway," Barbara loved to repeat. "We all live together, so the money is shared." Emily didn't argue, but inside, she was boiling. She felt like she wasn't the lady of her own house, but some servant who had to account for every penny. She wanted to buy herself a new dress, go to the hair salon, just feel like a woman again, not just a mom and an accountant. But according to Barbara, there was never money for that. Ryan saw his wife was unhappy but preferred not to get involved. He feared his mom's wrath, feared disrupting the routine. He was a good man, but too spineless and dependent on his mother's opinion. Emily loved him, but sometimes she thought he had never really grown up. In the evenings after putting Sophie to bed, Emily often sat in the kitchen sipping tea, trying to calm her irritation. She wanted to spill everything that had built up, but she was afraid. Afraid of ruining things with her husband, afraid of offending her mother-in-law, afraid of shattering the fragile family peace. She stayed quiet, hoping it would all sort itself out somehow. One day, when Emily got her latest paycheck, Barbara, while counting the money, remarked, "Oh, why so little this time? Didn't you get a bonus?" "No," Emily replied softly. "No bonus this month." "Oh well, no big deal," Barbara said cheerfully. "Hopefully next month. We really need the money right now." "For what?" Emily asked timidly. "For what? Jessica needs a new dress. Her birthday's coming up, and I've been offered a spa getaway. Can't pass that up. Gotta take care of my health." Emily stared at her mother-in-law in silence, feeling a wave of outrage building inside. So there was money for Jessica's dress and Barbara's trip, but never for her own needs. Somehow, her wants always fell short. "What about me?" Emily asked quietly. "What about you?" Barbara said, surprised. "Don't I need anything?" "Oh, what are you making up? You have everything. A husband, a child, a job. What more do you want?" Emily said nothing. She wanted to scream, cry, pour out everything that had piled up over these months. But she held back. She knew now wasn't the time for hysterics. She needed to act calmly and thoughtfully. She composed herself and said politely, "Fine, Barbara, whatever you say." That night, Emily couldn't sleep for ages. She lay in bed next to Ryan, staring at the ceiling, planning her next moves. It scared her, but she knew this couldn't go on. She had to protect herself, her family, her independence. She knew it wouldn't be easy. Barbara wouldn't give up without a fight. But Emily was ready to battle. She was no longer afraid. She was no longer the quiet, submissive daughter-in-law. She was turning into a warrior, ready to fight for her happiness. Emily realized Ryan probably wouldn't back her. He was too weak and tied to his mom. But she hoped that in time, he'd see she was doing the right thing. She hoped he'd realize how tired she was of the constant control and humiliation. Emily decided to act on her own. She wouldn't wait for someone else to fix her problems. She'd take her life into her own hands. And the first step on that path would be a small but crucial act of defiance. Emily turned decisively onto her side and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, she'd start her quiet revolution. Emily got her paycheck. Honestly, the amount wasn't impressive. After taxes and deductions, not much was left. But it was her money, earned through sweat and sleepless nights while little Sophie slept. In theory, anyway in practice, it all slipped away like sand, landing in Barbara's bottomless pocket. She entered the apartment, trying not to show joy or sadness. Ryan was lounging in his chair, glued to his phone. Jessica, as usual, was painting her nails, filling the air with a sharp smell of polish. Barbara was bustling in the kitchen, clanging pots like she was preparing not dinner, but a battle signal. "Ah, here's our hard worker," Barbara announced loudly, without even turning around. "Got the cash? Perfect timing." Emily nodded silently. She felt tension rising inside, her fists clenching. Today, things would be different. "Well then," Barbara proclaimed, like reading a royal decree. "Half goes to my vacation. I'm so exhausted I need a break, or I'll collapse from high blood pressure. And the other half, of course, for Jessica's new dress. She has a date soon, gotta look perfect." Ryan gave a weak smile and mumbled something about mommy. Jessica, batting her eyelashes, rushed over to Barbara and kissed her cheek. "Thanks, Mom. You're the best." Emily watched this performance, feeling a surge of fury mixed with despair. As always, her opinion didn't matter. They just presented it as fact, like it was set in stone. She was the income source, a powerless cash cow they could milk at will. She took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. "Okay," she said evenly. "Whatever you say." Barbara smirked smugly. "That's my smart girl. I was starting to think." Emily cut her off. Can I see the dress first? I want to make sure Jessica really likes it, and hear where you're planning to go on vacation. Maybe I can suggest a good hotel." Barbara was a bit thrown by this sudden interest. Usually, Emily just quietly agreed to everything. "Well, sure," she muttered. "Come by my room tonight. We'll look together." Emily nodded and left the room. She felt Ryan and Jessica's eyes on her but didn't turn back. She needed to be alone, to gather her thoughts and see her plan through. That evening, when Barbara went to shower, Emily returned to the room. Trying not to show her nerves, she transferred the real money into an old button box she'd kept since school. The box was on the top shelf of the bedroom closet, behind old winter clothes. It seemed like the safest spot in their small apartment. Then she grabbed a small but functional mousetrap from the kitchen cabinet. Ryan had brought it home once to deal with a mysterious mouse that never showed up. Now, the trap would play a very different role. Emily carefully set the spring and placed the mousetrap at the bottom of her bag, covering it with an old wallet. Next to it, She put a note she'd prepared earlier, written in big block letters on a scrap of paper. Not yours, don't take. She knew it looked silly and childish, but she saw no other way to get through to Barbara. It was her desperate cry for help, wrapped in a grotesque form. The whole next day, Emily was on pins and needles, listening to every rustle. She felt like Barbara was eyeing her suspiciously, but she acted normal, bossing around in the kitchen, giving orders to Ryan, endlessly cooing over her granddaughter. Jessica, as always, was absorbed in herself and her social media, ignoring everything else. Toward evening, when Ryan went to the store for groceries and Jessica left to hang out with a friend, Barbara started puttering in the kitchen as usual. Emily sat in the room at her laptop, pretending to work. In reality, she was nervously tapping keys, unable to focus on the numbers. Suddenly, a sharp, piercing scream rang out. Emily jumped. Her heart pounded wildly. She rushed to the kitchen and froze in the doorway. Barbara stood in the middle of the kitchen, clutching her hand and staring at Emily's bag on the table with a mix of horror and rage. A small drop of blood was on her finger. "What happened here?" Emily asked loudly, trying to sound as calm and innocent as possible. "What is this?" Barbara hissed, pointing a trembling hand at the bag. "What do you think you're doing?" Emily slowly approached the table and peered into the bag. The mousetrap was still at the bottom, set, but now a tiny drop of blood stained its metal bar. The note lay crumpled nearby. Just then, Ryan walked into the apartment. He carried grocery bags and looked puzzled. "What happened?" "I heard a scream." "Mom, are you okay?" Barbara looked at her son with hurt and indignation. "Your wife set a trap for me. Look what she did." Ryan set the bags down and approached the table. He picked up the note and read it aloud. "Not yours, don't take." "What does this mean?" Emily stayed silent, head down. She felt herself blushing but couldn't find the words. It all looked so stupid and absurd. It's me," she finally stammered. "I put the mousetrap in the bag." "Why?" Ryan exclaimed, staring at her in confusion. "Why would you do that?" Because I'm tired," Emily burst out, unable to hold back. "Tired of the constant control, of my money being treated like it's not mine, of no one listening to me." Barbara snorted disdainfully. "What nonsense are you spouting? I was just trying to help. Have I ever wished you harm?" "Help?" Emily laughed bitterly. "Taking my money for your fun, that's help? Deciding what I can buy and what I can't, that's help? I'm not a child. I'm a grown woman, and I want to manage my own money." Ryan glanced back and forth between his mom and his wife, clearly at a loss for words. He'd always avoided conflicts, especially with his mother. But now, seeing Emily's tear-streaked face and Barbara's flushed with anger, he suddenly felt he had to do something. "Mom," he said quietly, "maybe Emily's right. Maybe we should decide how to spend our money ourselves." Barbara raised her eyebrows, as if she couldn't believe her ears. "What are you saying, Ryan? You know I've always wanted the best for you. I just wanted everything to be okay." "I know, Mom," Ryan sighed. "But we're adults now. We can take care of ourselves." An awkward silence hung in the room. Barbara stared at Ryan with disappointment and offense. Emily lifted her head and looked at her husband with gratitude. For the first time in ages, she felt he was on her side. "Fine," Barbara finally said, barely containing her anger. "Do what you want. Just don't say I didn't warn you." She turned and stormed out of the kitchen, slamming the door loudly. Ryan approached Emily and hugged her. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I know I was wrong. I should have supported you sooner." Emily clung to him, feeling tears welling up again. "Thank you," she whispered back. "Thank you for being with me." In that moment, she realized the mousetrap had worked not just on Barbara, but on Ryan too. It helped him see the situation from the outside and realize how much his mother controlled their lives. The awkward silence filled the kitchen. For the first time in ages, it wasn't Emily losing face. Barbara, used to unquestioned obedience, was disarmed. Ryan, watching his mom, began to grasp how far his family's dependence on her opinion and control had gone. He saw not just a domineering woman, but a vulnerable mother afraid of losing her power. Emily pulled away from Ryan. She felt drained, but also liberated. She knew this was just the beginning, that more struggles lay ahead. But now she knew she wasn't alone. She had Ryan, ready to support her. She picked up the grocery bags from the floor and started unpacking them. Ryan silently helped, avoiding her eyes. He felt guilty and lost. He knew he had to change something, but didn't know where to start. Emily couldn't live like this anymore. She'd let Barbara rule their family for too long. She'd endured too much humiliation and injustice. The mousetrap was the final straw, a symbol of her desperate drive for freedom. The next morning, gathering her courage, Emily went to the bank. She opened her own account, where her salary would now go directly. For the first time in ages, she felt like the master of her life, not a puppet in her mother-in-law's hands. That evening, when Ryan got home from work, Emily was waiting in the kitchen. She could see on his face that he was still reeling from yesterday's incident. "Ryan, we need to talk," she said, trying to sound calm but firm. Ryan sighed and sank into a chair. He avoided her eyes, as if afraid to see judgment in them. "Mom's really upset," he muttered. Like an apology. "I know," Emily replied. "But I can't do this anymore. I don't want my paycheck going to your mom's whims and dresses for Jessica. This is my money. I earned it, and I want to decide how to spend it." Ryan shifted uncomfortably, silent. "I get that it's hard for you," Emily continued, softening her tone. "But you have to understand me too. I'm tired of feeling like a servant in my own home. I want a normal family where decisions are made together, not by your mom's orders." Ryan lifted his head and met Emily's eyes. His gaze showed confusion, but also something new, unfamiliar to Emily's determination. I'll talk to her," he said finally. "I'll tell her to stay out of our business." Emily looked at her husband skeptically. Was he really ready to stand up to his mother? Had he finally grown up and realized he had his own family to protect? "Are you sure?" she asked. "Yes," Ryan said firmly. "I love you, Emily, and I don't want you to suffer." That conversation was a turning point in their relationship. Ryan, embarrassed by what happened, really did talk to his mother. It was a tough discussion, full of reproaches and hurts. Barbara yelled, cried, blamed Emily for every sin imaginable. But Ryan held his ground. He explained to his mom that he and Emily were an independent family, and they should decide how to live and spend their money themselves. Barbara didn't accept defeat right away, of course. She sulked dramatically, ignored Emily, complained about her health and loneliness, but gradually, seeing her tactics weren't working, she started to back off. Meanwhile, Emily didn't sit idle. She decided to go back to office work. Remote was convenient, but she felt cut off from the world, trapped in four walls. She needed interaction, new experiences, a chance to shine. The job search took a few weeks, but Emily got lucky in the end. She was hired as an accountant at a small but promising company. She was thrilled. The new job gave her not just financial independence, but self-confidence. She felt needed, valued, engaging. Her first day was nerve-wracking. She worried if she'd handle the new duties, how the team would accept her. But it went well. Colleagues were friendly and welcoming. The work was interesting and captivating. With each day, Emily grew more confident and independent. She no longer feared her mother-in-law, no longer felt indebted to her. She learned to set boundaries and defend her interests. Her relationship with Ryan improved too. He became more attentive and caring, started listening to her opinion, helping around the house. He saw how Emily had blossomed, how happy and self-assured she'd become, and he knew it was partly his doing. He'd supported her in a tough moment, protected her from his mother's tyranny. Barbara, seeing her influence waning, gradually accepted the new reality. She stopped meddling in Emily and Ryan's finances, stopped giving unsolicited advice and criticizing their choices. She even began showing signs of respect for Emily, acknowledging her right to her own opinions and independence. Life in the family settled down. Emily and Ryan started living by their own rules without looking back at the older generation. They learned to negotiate, respect each other, and support one another in hard times. They became a real family, built on love, trust, and mutual understanding. One evening, as Emily and Ryan sat in the kitchen drinking tea, Emily suddenly said, "You know, Ryan, I think we should be grateful to your mom." Ryan looked at his wife in surprise. Grateful? For what? For helping us become stronger. If not for her control and tyranny, we'd never have learned to stand up for ourselves, set boundaries, and value our independence. She made us a real family. Ryan pondered Emily's words. Maybe she was right. Maybe everything that happened wasn't random, but necessary. Maybe they really needed to go through all those hardships to become who they were now. He hugged Emily and said, "I love you." "And I love you," Emily replied, pressing close to her husband. They sat there, embracing, looking out the window. Outside, it had grown dark. Stars twinkled in the sky. Peace and calm reigned in their home. They were happy. They'd broken free from the matriarch's control and built their own joyful life. And they knew nothing could stop them now.